Hello, Vineyard North. We are continuing our multimedia blitz today. Earlier today, Pastor Sid mentioned that we're doing a new discipleship training kind of curriculum or program. Some people don't like the word program, but we have been going through this in different ways at our church for about 2 years now. And we're launching this now for the whole church. And she mentioned that in a video. But right now, I have Aaron Mueller on with us to talk about it. He has been through this training a couple of years ago, and then he's also been one of the cohort leader or facilitators. Part of this is small group space where we get to be interactive and working through all this together. And Aaron has done that, but I thought it'd be great. And Aaron helps us with all the communication and connection and helps out in our church in tremendous ways. But I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, Aaron, about how this Kairos Foundation kind of experience, curriculum, program, however you want to talk about it, has kind of just impacted you. So the first question is, how has this changed how you see God at work or have seen yourself changed in the midst of this?
Yeah. I don't like to throw around the word life-changing a lot. I think pastors and church leaders tend to use that a lot. Like every program's life-changing, and like, what's the new life-changing program this week, right? But for me, I can honestly say, as someone who doesn't like to throw that term around a lot, that it has been really life-changing for me. And a big reason why is it's kind of reshaped the way that I view God's involvement in my life. So I grew up in a charismatic church that was really centered on seeking after the mountaintop spiritual experiences, right? I remember, like, as a kid, my parents dragging me to all these revival services and conferences with the flag ladies and the shofars and the whole bit. And they were really great in a lot of ways. And I'm really thankful for those formative moments where I got to see like God move in really powerful ways. But in some ways, it formed me into the type of Christian that's always seeking for that next spiritual high. And a lot of my, growing up years and even into my teens and 20s, I was the type of Christian always looking for that spiritual high, seeking the mountaintop experiences. And seeking mountaintop experiences is really great until you realize that the bulk of your life is lived on the roads and along the roads and in the valleys. So since moving to Grand Rapids and coming to the Vineyard, my life has changed a lot. I've had 2 kids. I found a more stable career. I'm working part-time at the church. My life has just gotten more full, more structured, more routine. And because of that, I don't have as much space to seek after those mountaintop experiences. But what I've discovered, and especially through this Kairos training, is that my walk with God, my life with God is so much richer when I notice how He's at work in the messiness, the monotony of everyday life. And that's really what this Kairos training is about. It's about learning to see how God is present and at work in the messiness of everyday life, right? Like, He's just as present and at work when I'm putting my 4-year-old to bed, which I just did, and it felt like it took forever. He's just as present in that, and maybe even more so than at that prayer meeting or revival service. So the Kairos training is really about helping you be sensitive to what the Spirit's saying in those moments, like where the kingdom might be breaking in just everyday life. So if I say the biggest thing for me is that just like I'm so much more aware of God's presence throughout my workday, like in interactions with coworkers, in meetings, in arguments with my wife, and like everyday parenting. Just learning to discern how God is speaking to me in those moments, and what good news and what freedom He might be inviting me into in everyday life.
Yeah, no, I like that. Everyday life is kind of like the key word that I keep coming back to, and the word kairos, it comes from the Greek word for like now, but it really means like breaking in or like something is changing in a significant way. And the whole point of the training is that every moment can be a Kairos moment. It could be a Kairos experience where God is breaking in to kind of teach us even the disappointments or the sadness, even the monotony of parenting or of relationships or of work.
Hmm.
So my other question is, and again, I'm Pastor Jeff, and we're just talking about some testimonies about some of the training that we'll be offering just starting next week. It's super soon, and I'm talking with Aaron Mueller about that. But what would your hope or dream be for our whole community? If our whole community could go through this training, how do you think that would change us?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I've thought about it a lot because and I've told Sid this, like, I just want everyone to be able to experience this. Initially, I think it was kind of thought of as like a leadership training piece, and that's definitely helps you as a leader. But anyone who's following Jesus um, can grow from this, from like you just said, learning how God, or learning about how God is at work in these Kairos moments that we call them. But what I would like to see, especially as I've been thinking about like this moment in time, right? So we're like in this season of COVID where a lot of us are isolated, a lot of us are feeling off center, and like that's just the way I've experienced this. It's like in a lot of moments I just feel off center, like things are just not right in the world, um, and feeling disconnected from people. But I've been on these Kairos calls, and I can look forward to them during the week, um, and know that I'm going to be surrounded by a group of people that care about me, that are wanting to meet me in love and with grace and with truth, and who really care about my journey. So I think it can be just such a lifeline for people during this COVID season. The other thing I was thinking about is that, like, we're coming up on Advent season already, and Advent, this season where we think about Emmanuel, God with us, God meeting us in all the brokenness of the world and all the darkness and all the messiness, taking on flesh and being among us. Um, I can't think of anything really more significant or even like a better way to enter into the spirit of Advent than to really invest our time in discovering God in uh, the craziness of everyday life, right? Especially in a COVID season where everything feels dark, everything is unknown and uncertain. But the message of Advent is that Christ comes to us in the midst of that. So I hope that it would be a way of recentering, that it would be a way of us connecting with how God's working in the midst of a crazy season like now, and that it would bring real unity. Like, I was really impressed, Pastor Jeff, just at how quickly our group um, came together and became united. Like, a lot of the people in my group, I didn't know really well. I kind of knew them as acquaintances, but we left as friends and more like family when we were done with this group. So I would think that even in this digital space, where two or more are gathered, God is with us and He's working. So that would be my hope for how it would change the church.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those are my hopes too, that people would experience God's presence, experience God at work in their life, but also that we could have deeper relationships, family relationships, even in the midst of this kind of lockdown and digital time. Well, thanks for taking a minute out, and thank you for all your service here at Vineyard North and for running these groups. It's called the Foundations, Kairos Foundations, because we're hoping, that this is like the 1 point, was it the 1.1 kind of initial kind of training, but then this is supposed to launch into like small groups that will continue on and processing God's work in our lives. And so let's all try to commit to joining this time around. We'll also be offering this training early in the spring if you can't make it this time, but please consider it. And we're going to be pushing out a couple more of these testimonies. Thanks again, Aaron.
Not a problem. Good to talk with you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you all later.